Well, hello. I'm in another parking lot. I'm off today with St. Constance, running some errands with her, and I wouldn't get back in time for our 10 o'clock presentation, so I don't know how long she's going to be. And so I know I'll be late otherwise, so I'm going to continue our video discussion of the exorcism of Our Lady of Sorrows Catholic High School, and hope that Constance gives us time to do that this morning. I hope you're there. I see a couple people waving. Hello. Again, to review, this is from my book, Low Magic. It's all in your head. You just have no idea how big your head is. Published by our good friends at Llewellyn. And yesterday, we read part 1 of the chapter 13, which is the exorcism of Our Lady of Sorrows. We had gotten to the point of where I figured out what I was going to do, and the circumstances of why a goofy klutz like me got himself involved in exorcising a Catholic girls' school. And I stepped into the shower. This is where we left me. We left me in the shower, where I sort of had a vision of what I was going to do. So, part 2 starts is the preparation, and I start with an epigram quoting from The Exorcist, the wonderful movie The Exorcist. Frater Damien, the young priest, is talking to the old priest, Father Marin, and he says, I think it might be helpful if I give you some background information on the different personalities Regan has manifested. So far, I'd say there seem to be 3. And old Father Marin says, there is only one. Okay. Enough dramatics, let's go to Lon. It's been my observation, always in hindsight, that real magic, or the real magic in a magical operation, is accomplished in the preparation process rather than the execution of the ceremony itself. The magic ritual is merely the seal that grounds the current of the magician's will and completes the circuitry on all planes. Like Minerva leaping from the cloven skull of Zeus, my plan for the exorcism was fully formed before I stepped out of the shower. It crystallized in my brain in the timeless moment between the shampoo and rinse, and was triggered by a simple vision, a childhood memory of old Mr. Jacobs, the janitor of my old elementary school, sweeping the floor of the gymnasium. Now, I've got a footnote here that it was Highland Park Elementary School in Columbus, Nebraska. But I remember Mr. Jacobs having long, curved fingernails as thick as eagle's talons. I don't know what that might have had to do with the demonic nature of my program here, but that's the truth. Okay, old Mr. Jacobs, his technique was simple, methodical, and tidy. He would first sweep all dirt and debris from every corner of the gym floor and concentrate the mess in one neat pile in the center of the floor. Then, with a final flourish of the broom, he dispatched the nasty pile into his dustbin. I would do the same. I would sweep the totality of the phenomena, the entire conglomerate of forces and energies that were tormenting the school and its inhabitants, into one pile. I would then treat that pile as a single spiritual entity. I would focus and create one master devil that embodied all the lesser demons that severally worked their specific acts of mischief and terror. One spirit that I would evoke into the Solomonic triangle of art. Once I had the nasty critter trapped, I would have a proper talk with it. Banish it, curse it, and if necessary, annihilate it by using the tried and true techniques of the art of Solomonic magic. You might think this is somewhat presumptuous of me. After all, where does DuQuette get off creating demons? Aren't there already enough evil spirits running around the cosmos? I confess these questions didn't even occur to me, because for all intents and purposes, the staff, the faculty, and the students of Our Lady of Sorrows had already created the devilish spirit. They just didn't know its name. And for the moment, neither did I. What's in a name? It's a universal axiom promulgated by magicians and magical traditions of nearly every age and culture that discovering the name of the spiritual entity gives the magician power over it. Recall the story of Rumpelstiltskin. In traditional Solomonic magic or Goetia, the names of the 72 spirits are provided in the text. The book also contains images of the spirit's sigil, that's spelled S-I-G-I-L. Pronounce it any damn way you want. The spirit's sigil or seal. The seal is a very important ingredient in the recipe of evocation. Indeed, it is upon the seal in the triangle that the spirit appears to the magician. 2 copies of the sigil are used in the classic ceremony. One is drawn on a medallion that is worn around the magician's neck. The other is drawn on parchment and placed within the triangle where the spirit will appear. The magician and the spirit are thus linked by the 2 sigils. The spirit is drawn to its own sigil and then becomes trapped in the triangle where the magician stands in relative safety of the circle. I'll talk more about that in a moment. My first task would be to discover the spirit's name and then use the letters of its name to generate the image of the sigil, which I would use in the operation. Other magicians, I'm sure, will have their own ideas about how this is best done. On this occasion, I chose to use the pendulum. Over the years, I've gained some proficiency applying this marvelous tool in magical and divinatory operations. My pendulum is a small brass plum that was given to me many years ago by my dear friend Donald Weiser. It is attached to a string about 18 inches in length. I use it in a variety of ways, but for this task, I would use it to determine a series of yes or no questions. A clockwise rotation indicating yes, and a counterclockwise rotation indicating no. I went to the garage and I got out the family's Scrabble game. I opened it up and emptied the lettered tiles on the living room coffee table. I turned the tiles face down on the table and swirled them around for a moment. Then I tied the string of my pendulum to the tip of my magic wand and began the process of selecting the letters that spelled the name of the demon. It must have been quite a scene. A large man, I was 310 pounds, I think, in those days, a large man in a black robe sitting on the couch, dangling his wand and pendulum like a tiny fishing pole over each Scrabble tile, while asking out loud to seemingly no one in particular, "Is this a letter in the name of the demon of Our Lady of Sorrows? Is this a letter of the name of the demon of Our Lady of Sorrow? Is this the name?" Okay. About 10 minutes later, the pendulum had chosen only 3 tiles, which I set aside, still face down, while I put the rest back in the box. Then, one by one, the pendulum determined the order of the 3 letters in the spirit's name. I then turned the tiles over, and voila! The name was revealed. It was a funny-looking name with no vowels. S-L-G. Would that be pronounced slug? Slog? Slig? Slug? Slage? Sludge? I had to admit, slug sounded like a perfectly proper and nasty name for a demon. If these were Hebrew letters, they would probably be Samach, Lamed, and Gimel. Each letter also represents a number. In this case, Samach 60, Lamed 30, and Gimel 3. Together, they total 93. Now, 93 is a pretty important number for many modern Hermetic Kabbalists who, like me, subscribe to the magical doctrine of Thelema. I got a footnote that explains a little bit about Thelema. And the watchwords of Thelema are, "Do what thou wilt shall be the whole of the law, and love is the law, love under will." If you've ever corresponded with a Thelemite, you've probably noted that we begin our letters and emails with the formal phrase and close with the latter. The words will and love in Greek are thelema and agape, or agape, and each enumerate to 93. In informal communications and in social settings, Thelemite magicians often abbreviate these phrases to their numerical essence and simply greet each other with a friendly 93. This amused me at first, as if the demon were being playful. My amusement soon cooled as it occurred to me that the S in the spirit's name could also be treated as the Hebrew letter Shin, whose number is 300. And in that case, the name Shin Lamed Gimel would add to 333. Now, I realize not everyone reading this book is a magician or a Hermetic Kabbalist, and therefore should not be expected to appreciate what all the fuss is concerning these numbers. But for many modern magicians, no number carries a more terrifying implication than does 333. It is the number of the archdevil Choronzon, the dweller in that horrible, pathless anti-region of the Tree of Life known as the Abyss. Every magician, as he or she ascends the evolutionary ladder of consciousness, is, sooner or later, obliged to pass through the looking glass of this abyss. It's the final barrier, preventing the true essence of the magician's consciousness from identifying completely with that of the divine. The ego cannot make it through the abyss. Indeed, nothing that the magician has heretofore considered self can pass through that awful non-place. If the crossing is successful, what emerges on the other side is the equivalent of a Buddha, a master of the temple, a level of consciousness represented by the third sephira, Bina, on the tree of life. If unsuccessful, the magician, still clutching to and identifying with the false self of ego, falls into the abyss and is lost in the perpetual madness of a false sephira, Da'ath, and separated both from the divine influence from above and the merciful distractions of mundane consciousness from below. Let's see. Okay, the footnotes are just refers to the Trees of Life titles. Now, before any of us get too carried away, I want to make it perfectly clear that I presently dwell conspicuously low on the Tree of Life's initiatory ladder of consciousness. I don't believe that I was on that day, nor am I now, posed upon the precipice of that great initiatory crisis. But at the time I did interpret the numbers 93 and 333 to be an unmistakable, personal, two-part message to me from the demon, which I will vulgarly and succinctly boil down to something like this. 93. Hi, Lon, I've got your number, Mr. Hotshot Thelemic Magician. And 333. Don't mess with me. I'm one bad-ass demon. Now, I'm not going to attempt to further explain the magical nuances implied by the manifestation of these numbers as they relate to the demon's name and my own magical career. Neither do I wish to overstate or overdramatize the significance of either number 93 or 333 in this particular context. It is enough that you understand that for me this bit of Kabbalistic information added a new and disturbingly personal spiritual dimension to this operation. One that informed me in no uncertain terms that the struggle in which I was about to engage was inextricably linked to unseen and unrecognized issues relating to my own initiatory journey. Indeed, it was my battle, my crisis, my initiation. Sister Martha didn't know it, but in asking me to exorcise Our Lady of Sorrows, she had also retained me to call forth and exorcise a demon from myself. And when you think about it, how could it be otherwise? As for the true and proper name of the demon, I decided to incorporate both spellings and call it Slug Slug. Pronounced Slug Slug. Very Lovecraftian, I thought. Okay, and for those Kabbalists out there who are adding stuff up, Slug Slug adds to 426, and 426 is a nice number in Hebrew Kabbalah. It's the word Savior, and in particular, it appears in Isaiah. Verily, thou art God that hideth thyself, O God of Israel, the Savior. Okay, now, let's see here. I created the Slug Signal by using a large lettered rose from the center of the Hermetic Rose Cross. Now, we're not getting good light in here today because of where I'm parked, but there is the Hermetic Rose Cross, and there's the rose itself. Now you see Hebrew letters there, so I just took slug, which use the same. It's a simple sigil. It turned out to be a simple sigil, and I made a medallion of one of them. On the back side of the medallion was a pentagram, and the other one that's in the square there, I put that on a Post-it note, a square yellow goofy office Post-it note. Okay. Now, I knew that the spirit's name had its sigil, and I used the magic marker to draw the sigil on the front of a circular copper medallion. The medallion was attached to a chain. I would wear it around my neck and show it to Slug immediately upon its appearance in the triangle, thus binding it to me for the duration of the ceremony. Etched on the reverse side of the medallion is the image of the pentagram of Solomon. It's the symbol of the microcosm and the magician's mastery of himself or herself and the world of elements. It is the second image the magician displays to the spirit on its appearance, sort of like a police officer showing his or her badge to the bad guy. It's also a handy thing to flash if the spirit becomes obstinate, or worse. I drew another version of the sigil within the triangle at the top of the sheet of a pad of yellow 3x3 Post-it notes. I'll soon explain why I used Post-it note. Place the pad in the triangle during the ceremony of evocation.